Buying your first home is exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. Today, we're breaking down the 5 most important tips every first-time homebuyer needs to hear. Did you know that most first-time homebuyers make at least one avoidable mistake that costs them thousands? Let's make sure that's not you. I'm here today with Taylor Darby, and she's a top producing real estate agent based here in Melbourne, Florida, and she co-leads the Sentz Darby Team of ReMax Elite with over 11 years of experience. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you. That is crazy. 11.
Wild,
I feel
right?
like it was big to get to 10, but now I'm over 10. I'm like, oh gosh.
Game changer when you hit that decade mark.
Makes you feel old.
Yeah. Well, we're not old. We're actually grouped in with the largest demographic of home buyers today, which are millennials. So don't age yourself too much.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. And also a Brevard County native, right?
Yes. Yep.
So how long have you lived here? Since birth?
Since birth, yeah. So I actually was born in St. Augustine, but we moved here when I was a baby. So my parents bought in Satellite Beach and actually still live in that house that they bought in Satellite Beach.
Wow.
It was supposed to be their starter home, so I don't know how much Bridget, my mother, loves to hear that, but they have changed it and made it into everything they wanted, but she still laughs and gives my dad a hard time about that situation. It's funny.
That's incredible.
Yes.
And what an awesome dynamic to be able to work with your mom in real estate as well.
Yeah, we're actually just talking about how interesting it is to have the mother-daughter dynamic.
Yeah.
Because I know it's great to have teams and have other people on your team that you can depend on, but there's something about a family dynamic where you know that situation's going to be handled exactly how you would handle it.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very high level of trust there.
There is, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, this market is ever changing, but one thing remains consistent this year over last year, and that's that first-time home buyers, the largest demographic of first-time home buyers is, in fact, millennials.
They're like my little babies. I love them.
So would you say that you focus a lot on first-time home buyers?
You know what? When I first started in real estate, I felt like I definitely, just because it was so relatable, like I had, 2014, I bought my first house. I went through that experience. It's thrilling, it's scary, it's exciting. And so just to have that relatability factor, and age-wise, I've always kind of like stayed in that wheelhouse of relatability with their age,
right?
Has been an easy way for me to be able to help them, and I feel like gain that trust.
Yeah, trust is huge. So what do you think some of the most common mistakes that first-time home buyers make are when choosing specifically a property?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say the biggest mistake they'll make is ever jumping in before having that conversation with the lender to really have the guidance of where we're starting price point-wise.
Okay.
I think it's a terrible decision for anybody, and that's not even just a first-time home buyer, that's across the board, of course, but it's like if you don't know the wheelhouse of where you're looking, I don't care if you're aiming for the stars and your budget's, down here, or vice versa. It could be you don't think you can afford it and you realize that you're able to afford that. And then secondly, I think that they just get blinded. I think that a lot of times, I think more so maybe back when I first started and there was more flipped properties, lipstick on a pig. I think it's hard not to gravitate towards those properties that are pretty. And they might be pretty, but you might start peeling that back and it's the onion effect.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's bigger issues here than I love that it's pretty, and I love that you feel like it that's what matters the most, but you really have to be the advocate to make them understand that there's so many bigger issues behind a home that really matter and are just financially you have to be ahead of them because they will catch up to you.
They certainly will, and this is the biggest financial investment that most people make in their lives. So how can you tell buyers if a home is really priced correctly in today's market? Going back to that, it looks pretty, but is it priced correctly?
Yeah, so I think in the last 6 months has really been, and that's speaking like specifically to now, the last 6 months have been tough because we've been in such an adjustment period with our market, and kind of figuring exactly where we're leveling out. I mean, interest rates have been chasing us, and that's been a driving force of where affordability factor has been for the buyers. But I would say how long the house has been sitting on the market. Interest, I mean, I always like to be a step ahead. So it's interesting when you first start working with a buyer and maybe it's the first house they've seen. And it might be one of those houses that like probably and could have been the perfect house for them, but they just were not prepared and ready to have a full understanding of the seriousness. If I'm telling you, we got to jump and we need to get our ducks in a row to be able to have a phenomenal offer in place, and they lose it, is a different situation than when you've maybe, gone through this 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or however many times with a client to be in that house that finally really is the one that was priced correctly, that, we get in quickly and can make those decisions to put together an offer that will be a winning offer. Because, if you walk a house and it's been sitting on the market for 160 days, there's something not adding up. You know, maybe it's priced. It probably is priced. I would say 9 times out of 10 it's priced. So just those conversations and the experience of whether it's the first time or the 15th house that you're walking into them with, it's just gaining rapport and trust and being able to relay all these things to them to make them understand whether the house is priced correctly and potentially could be the one.
Sure. And I think sometimes those negative experiences right out of the gate, if they lose something, while it's tragic, it does help build trust with them. They go, oh, she knew what she was talking about. She knew, we should have jumped on this quicker.
And I know it pains people at first because it stinks to lose out on a house, but you have to remember there will always be another house. There will always be another one.
Yes. So what should first-time buyers be looking for during showings that most people would overlook?
Interesting one. Okay, so I think, again, kind of relating back to we get caught up in pretty. Right? So I always say mechanicals. Mechanicals are going to be your most expensive thing. Your roof, your HVAC, your plumbing, your electrical. That might not be something you see with the naked eye, but let's do our due diligence. Let's ask the questions. I always try to be, especially when I know I have a first-time home buyer, maybe the money's tight. Maybe we are finally in a price point that really is going to work for them, but we're kind of having to be creative with how we are structuring our interest. So maybe it's a house that doesn't have the prettiest floors, but we have a brand new roof. We have a brand new HVAC. Maybe it's a beachside property and the cast iron's been replaced, but they did the cast iron and they couldn't do the floors. So that's something that you're going to have to come in and do. I have to just remind people the importance of those bigger factors because those also roll into your insurance cost. And insurance, especially right now, we're kind of seeing things tick up. And so you just want to be ahead of those things as well because those play a factor in what that monthly payment's going to look like. And I feel like with first-time home buyers, it's really smart to kind of hone in on focus on your monthly payment. And so if we're also paying attention to those things that reflect your insurance and will affect your insurance, then we're able to, keep our priorities straight.
Definitely.
It doesn't always have to be pretty. It can take 5 years to make your home what you want it to be. But affordability is so important to me that I really try to stress to them that I don't want them to get caught up and distracted. And you can also, when you've built that trust, then you let them know the client before you or the listing or the agent before you talk to their client and let them know to do the heavy lifting of taking care of those big ticket items that are the mechanics of it. So don't sweat the small stuff. And my favorite thing, I pride myself on being able to have the ability to build that trust with the client because at the end of the day, we are their biggest advocate. Real estate is sales. We are selling something, but I will always pride myself more on making sure that they have an understanding that I have a full grasp, want, and need because I will always put myself in the position of how I would want to be handling something to make sure that I treat them exactly that way.
Awesome. Speaking of that, how would you recommend buyers approach bidding wars or competitive offer situations?
So we see a lot less of this, like COVID times. I feel grateful to kind of gotten to experience that because it was crazy. So we see a lot less of that now, but I would still say just letting them understand maybe always stay within your affordability. Again, I feel like I'm probably saying that again, but when we're structuring these offers, I like to remind them that they might not feel like they have the highest priced offer, but there's so much more to an offer and the offer package that you present than price, you know? So I like to remind them just because they say that there's another offer in hand doesn't mean that it's a cash offer with 0 contingencies and a 7-day close because that's not every situation.
It's the unicorn.
Right. And those happen. You're like, real estate humbling me yet again. But that offer, it could have a sale home contingency. It could have whatever. And so I always tell my people, we're going to write that offer. We're going to throw it out there. And if it sticks, it sticks. And it's meant to be. It's meant to be. But yeah, just making sure that they understand that there are different things that we can do within our offer when we know that we're at a comfortable price point, where we know that if we walk away and we lose this house and it wasn't $1 more that we weren't willing to go over, that you are confident that we tried our best. Because I think at the end of the day, when you're writing these offers, they don't want to lose the house. If they're writing the offer, they must be serious enough. So you want to do your best and put your best foot forward for them. So just different parts of the offer that we can really focus on.
Yeah.
And again, the agent representing you, I think that's such an important thing that they don't get. My communication level, I want to make sure when I'm presenting this offer to the selling agent, I want them to know that I put them in touch with a phenomenal lender. That's a local lender that will call you and share with you just how strong they are as a client. Making sure that we already have inspections scheduled. Tentatively, we already have an inspection scheduled if you're ready to move forward with us, and we've already bumped it down to 7 days. Just things like that they know that I'm working as hard as possible to make sure that we are doing the best we can with whatever that offer may look like to give it their best shot.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're working with a solid team.
Yes,
for sure.
Of course, yeah.
So what's one piece of advice that you wish that every first-time home buyer knew before they started house hunting?
I feel like we stress so much importance of, affordability. I will, again, make sure that they feel comfortable. I don't want you to be house poor. That's never it. But I don't want you to lose sight of the excitement of the process. I feel like they say the three most stressful experiences in life are buying a house.
Oh, for sure.
Marriage and divorce.
Definitely.
And a death, you know? And so they're stressful, but they can be so exciting as well. So I just like to make sure and do the best that I can to, not suck all of the fun out of it. It really is a fun experience. It should be fun. You should be excited. And I like the client to walk in the house and start envisioning what the future is going to look like. I mean, a house is such a stepping stone and a beautiful, experience and humbling thing to get to recognize as your own. Yeah. And I love, I've lived in different homes, and each one that I've lived in holds memories to me that I love and recognize it's important. And I look forward to every experience that my clients have of what that home and that process and experience will look like for them.
Awesome. So check the technical boxes up front and then enjoy the rest of the ride.
Yes. We'll make sure all the boxes can be checked and you can still enjoy the time.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You're a wealth of knowledge, Taylor.
Thanks.
We appreciate you being on. And for those of you that are just joining us, make sure that you do all the things the kids say to do, like, subscribe, and tune in next time. Thanks.